These are the three methods that you can use to do letter grading in Excel. We are going to be starting off with the if function itself. Later on, we'll look at how to use the ifs as well as the VLOOKUP function. Assuming that you have your list of students that looks like this right here, whereby we have the student name, the different subjects that they have done, the total score, the average score, and what we want to calculate is, for example, the grading based off the average score for each individual student. And our grading structure is right here. Starting off with the if example, you'd come over to the result cell and say equals if this average score is greater or equals to 90, value if true, this should be an A, comma, I ask another question, if L of 4 is greater or equals to 80, value if true, that should be a B, comma, I ask another question, if L of 4 once again is greater or equals to 70, value if true, this should be a C, comma, if L of 4 once again is greater or equals to 60, value if true, this should be a D, comma, otherwise we should get an F. So I'll open quotes, F, close quotes. Because I did open so many ifs, so I'll have to close all of them. So I'll close until I see the black closing brackets. Hit enter key on the keyboard, and there you go. You can see this particular student right here gets a B. Let us drag this formula to the rest of the cells. If you would like to test if our function works properly, let us change this max to, for example, 95. We expect an A in here. Yes, it is, and therefore the function is working properly. Let us try the ifs example. So I'll get rid of these values and then work out the ifs example, which I'll say equals ifs. The only difference between the if and the ifs is that for the ifs, you continue supplying the logical tests. As you can see, all arguments are requiring that you provide the logical tests. But for the if, remember, we did what is called nested if. Every time you ask another question or you want to open another logical test, you have to open another if, and that's called nested if. I'll say if the average score right here is greater or equals to 90, this will be an A, comma, another logical test will be if the average score is greater or equals to 80, this will be a B, comma, another logical test will be if the average score is greater or equals to 70, this will be a C, comma, another logical test will be if the average score is greater or equals to 60, this will be a D. For the ifs, you can see that you can go on and on supplying logical tests. So it has no value if false argument. So how do you trick this function to say value if false? What you'll do, you'll put a comma, especially for this last argument right here, and say true, comma, and then declare what should be returned. That will be an F. Close the ifs function, hit enter key on the keyboard. We literally get the same results right here. So let us drag this function to the rest of the cells. And yes, the ifs function is working very fine as well. Let's try out the VLOOKUP example. So you'll come over to the result cell and say equals VLOOKUP. The lookup value will of course be our average score, and the table array, we are gonna be using this table right here. So you have to select the table array that contains your values, F4 key on the keyboard to make it absolute. Now you need to give the VLOOKUP the column index number, which column contains the values that you'd like to return. And in this particular example, we are interested in returning the letter grades, and the letter grades are in column number 2. So I'll put a 2 right here, because our interest is to do an approximate match. For this particular example, we could even close off the function from here, because the VLOOKUP by default, the range lookup is approximate, unless if we were actually interested in doing an exact match. That's when we could proceed and then say comma and then put a 0 or false to represent exact match. I'll not do that in this particular example. I'll close it from here, because I know by default VLOOKUP, the lookup range is approximate. I hit enter key on the keyboard, and there you go. You can literally see that we get the same results like we did for the if and the ifs example. I know this is just a scratch on the surface on what the if function and the VLOOKUP can do in Excel. If you're still interested in more advanced examples, watch the videos that are showing on your screen right now. See you in the next video.